Hi, my name is Franklin Reppy, and this is my phylogenetic project, phylogenetic diversity project for Biology 112 at Martin Community College. So, to start things off, I have a Chesapeake Bay blue crab um, that is no longer blue after being in the isopropyl alcohol for a little over almost a month, actually. Um, So its phyla is Arthropodia, its class is Malacostra, the order is Decapodia, the family is Portunidae, the genus is Calinectus, and the species is Sapidus. So I collected this March 27th at a store in the Outer Banks. I was down there for work for a couple days, and I just stopped by a um, seafood store, and they were kind enough to give me one that they caught that morning. So that was off the coast of the Outer Banks in the Atlantic Ocean. So that's where this came from. So the Chesapeake Bay blue crab is actually a type of soft shell crab. Even though its shell does feel hard, it is considered a soft shell crab because it's softer than other types of crabs. Um, it is known for its shade of blue, and it is most commonly found in from the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia all the way down to the Nag's Head. So it lives in a very small area, but that is where it is. That's where it lives, and it is a relatively smaller crab compared to other crabs. So I'll get a close up of the crab right in there. Again, no longer has its shade of blue, just because of the way it is. And you can tell it's a female by the way it's this plate back here is rounded. If it was a male, it would be more pointy. So that's how you determine if it's a male or female. Next up, I have a pine cone from a longleaf pine tree. So its phyla is Conifer phyta, the class is Pinopsida, the order is Pinalis, the family is Pinaceae, the genus is Pinus, and the species is Palustris. So I collected this pine cone um, out of my front yard on April 6th because I have a longleaf pine tree in my front yard. So I've had it for quite a while, but the longleaf pine is like the typical pine tree you see in northeastern North Carolina. The only difference is the pine straws are longer than almost all other pine trees. That's why it's named the longleaf pine. And it can be found from Texas all the way to northern parts of eastern Virginia. It doesn't typically grow west of the Appalachian Mountains um, on this side of the country, but it does grow in parts of Texas. So that is the pine cone from a longleaf pine. Next up, we have a pecan. So the pecan, its phyla is Magnolia phyta. The class is Magnolia psidia. The order is Phagelis. The family is Juglandaceae. The genus is Cara. The species is Ilio Illino. I'm sorry, Illinoinesis. So I collected this pecan on March 20th from my grandparents' pecan tree. They've had a pecan tree that they planted over 50 years ago, 40 to 50 years ago, that has been growing pecans ever since, basically. So the pecan is native to temperate climates. Um, it's found from the Gulf of Mexico and parts of Mexico all the way up to eastern parts of Virginia. And when you get them off the tree, they're in hard shells, almost like a walnut. Um, and yeah, everyone knows what a pecan is, I hope, because they are native to North Carolina and they are a big part of our culture with pecan pie, especially around the holidays. That's pecan. Next up, we have a common earthworm. So I dug this out of my yard on April 8th. And I accidentally cut it in half, and as you can see, it's starting to shrivel up and grow some mold on it. but this is a common earthworm, also known as a night crawler. So its phyla is Annelida. The class is Clitellata. The order is Crassiclitellata. The family is Lumbricidae. The genus is Lumbricus, and the species is Terrestris. So again, it's also called the night crawler, but it is the common earthworm. It is a segmented cylindrical worm that is a pinkish to reddish brown in color and lives underground. And you can often find it in the shaded areas underground. It doesn't like to live in the areas that are under the sun underground. So anywhere that the sun hits the ground, you more than likely won't find the common earthworm there. They're more than likely found in the woods or anywhere that is shaded. So next up, we have the eastern oyster. This is the shell of an eastern oyster. So its phyla is Mollusca. The class is Bivalva. The order is Ostrida. The family is Ostridae. The genus is Crassostrea, and the species is Virginica. So I got this on March 27th, the same day as the blue crab. I went to just get this eastern oyster because they have a ton of them outside. They collect them, they shuck them and everything, and then they throw the shells away, or they just throw them on the ground. So I went by and asked if I can have a shell, and they were like, "Here, have a blue crab too." So that's how I got this eastern oyster. So this oyster is a relatively large mollusk, and it resides in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of North Carolina and Virginia, and parts of South Carolina. So it's all along the East Coast. It's relatively common. So its shell is made of calcified minerals that layer and layer and become thicker and thicker, and they are often this grayish, brownish color that you can see here. And right there is where the oyster was connected to the shell before they shucked them. So up next, I have a white-tailed deer antler. So the white-tailed deer phyla is Chordata. The class is Mammalia. The order is Arteriodactyla. The family is Cervidae. The genus is Odocoileinae, and the species is Virginianus. So I collected this on March 31st from my coworker. He is an avid hunter, and what he likes to do is bury them to get all the flesh and skin and anything off of it so it looks cool, and then he'll unbury them and leave them on the ground for a little while, which is why, like, you can see there some squirrel have been biting on it. So I got this on March 31st, like I said, from my coworker. So the white-tailed deer is actually the only deer that populates eastern North Carolina and Virginia. It has mostly short brown hair and gets its name from its signature white tail. So the males grow antlers, and they typically don't shed, and they only get bigger as they age. That's why you hear people say they have an 8-pointer, a 10-pointer. I've heard of someone getting a 56-pointer. This one here, as you can see, is a 3-pointer. So this is the white-tailed deer. But what's interesting about this horn, or this antler, is you can see shades of green on it. So where my coworker left it laying out in the woods, when he went back to get it, he found some moss growing on it. And the moss that was growing on it is called pincushion moss, and it left a green residue on the antler right here. So this pincushion moss, its phyla is Bryophyta, the class is Bryopsida, the order is Discrinales, the family is Lusobriaceae, the genus is Lusobryum, and the species is Glaucum. So I also collected it on March 31st because it came with the horn. So pincushion moss is the typical moss that you see in the woods. If you go out in the woods in the summertime, you're probably going to see some pincushion moss. It's that thick, kind of fluffy looking moss on the ground. That's generally going to be the pincushion moss that you see. It is soft, and it resembles pincushion. If you've ever seen a pincushion, this is what it resembles. That's where it gets its name from. It grows in shaded, cool areas and can grow on various objects like a deer antler. If you leave something lying on the ground in the woods, pincushion moss can grow on it. But it's not to be confused with rock cap moss, which only grows on rock. So yeah, so that is pincushion moss, and it left a green residue on this deer antler. So, next up is common mold. So as you can see, I have this was a cornbread muffin that has now been taken over by mold. So the phyla for this mold is Ascomycota. The class is Eurotiomycetes. The order is Eurotiales. The family is Trichomaceae, and the species is Aspergillus. So I got this April 12th. My grandma had some cornbread muffins, and one of them started growing mold, and it's just kind of taken over. You can see all the green and white in there. This is the common mold that you find growing on bread or grain or anything. So it's, like I said, it's often a white-green color, and it has a fuzzy texture and appearance to it. I wouldn't recommend eating it. But yeah, it often grows on grains and stuff like that. And last, but not least, for this project is what's called the Christmas fern. So I collected this on April 22nd from Lowe's. So the Christmas fern phyla is Phylogentic. The class is Phylicopsida. The order is Phylicales. The family is Drypteridaceae. The genus is Polysticum, and the species is Arcostecoides. So the Christmas fern is named the Christmas fern because it is green throughout the holiday season until about mid-January, mid-February, before it gets brown and then it loses its leaves like most plants do. So the leaves shoot off of this main stem in like a zigzag pattern. So like you have one here and then or like a diagonal pattern going back and forth all the way up to the end. And that's how you can, and they're relatively short leaves, and that's how you can identify that it's a Christmas fern, other than the fact that it'll stay green throughout the holiday season, which is why it gets its name, the Christmas fern. And this is the last thing that I gathered for my project. So that is all 9. So thank you, and have a good day.